Welcome to Straight Up Book Club. Today we're going to be discussing Act 2 of The Fury by Alex Michaelides. So if you have not listened to Act 1 yet, go back and listen to Season 2, Episode 1, where we discuss that. Otherwise, you're going to be very confused. Before we get into it, spoiler alert, we are obviously talking about the book as it unfolds. We will be talking about everything that we see. So if you haven't read The Fury yet up to Act 2, then don't listen to this. It's going to be a big spoiler for you.
Come back and listen after you're done. Because it's like book club, right? You'd come to book club and talk about details. So lots of spoilers. So you've been warned.
Exactly. We've given you fair warning. Before we get into it, should we talk about where we read the book and what we drank while we were reading it?
That sounds good. I feel like my answers are so boring this week and last week, but honestly, like things were hectic, and when I've been reading, I've just been wanting to sit on my couch and read my book and listen, drink Writer's Tears. So I'm still on Writer's Tears. It's a good whiskey and it pairs well with this. So
it's perfect for this. There's so much like writing in it between the book itself, like Eliot discussing it as if it's a book, the play, Barbara West's books. We're going to be talking about another book today. So I feel like Writer's Tears is probably the most fitting for this.
Yeah. How about you?
Also very boring. But hey, this is like the everyday. I read literally where you're sitting right now with my coffee because I've been reading it in the morning before I start work for the day. So that's kind of been my jam. And then at night, if I do want to read a little bit more, I've been reading it with it's Jameson's Black Barrel Whiskey, which I would never usually buy Jameson. No offense to Jameson.
I was gonna say you're not a big Jameson person.
No, I'm not, but I won it in a game of like beer pong over the holidays, and it was actually pretty good. The Black Barrel, it's a little bit closer to Writer's Tears, I would say. It's a more refined Jameson. So if you want to give Jameson a try the Black Barrel. It's all right.
That's so funny. Okay, I'm gonna have to try that because one of my first memories of meeting you and like getting to know you surrounds Jameson, because I was really into Jameson those days. Like we were broke kids.
Was I judging you for drinking Jameson?
No, I'd always be like, because you were my one friend that was really into whiskey, as into whiskey as I was. And I remember Jameson was my go-to because it was like economical. So I'd be like getting us a round of Jameson, and I could tell that was not your favorite.
I mean, I wasn't. I was a broke student too. Like I was drinking Johnny Walker Red Label was my go-to. Like I would go to parties and bring like a little flask of Johnny Walker Red Label. Yeah. And I would play beer pong with it. I don't know what was wrong with me.
Wait, you're playing beer pong with... That's dangerous. That's a dangerous game. So it's like instead of beer, it's whiskey in the glasses? Oh, man.
Oh, no, I'm thinking flip cup. But still,
okay.
Yeah.
That's very different.
But I was correct when I said I won the Jameson in a game of beer pong. That was beer pong, but with like prizes in it. It's really fun. I found it on Instagram, and then we did that over the holidays. But what I was playing at parties was flip cup, and I would put Johnny Walker Red Label in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because you're not drinking as much for flip cup.
I still drink a lot.
That's not how you play, I guess.
Those were wilder times.
I remember we moved on to Glenfiddich.
Yes, I was gonna bring that up. We did move on to Glenfiddich. I still love a good Glenfiddich. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I feel, that's my cat. Pause.
That he just yelled at you. He's like, Mama, why'd you take so long?
He really wanted to get out of that bedroom. There's no food for him, so not yet. Oh my God, Glenfiddich. I kind of want to have a Glenfiddich soon and just like see what that tastes like.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. Because now, if I'm buying one of the Glens, it's usually a Glenlivet.
One of the Glens.
There are so many Glens.
How far we've come since those Jameson Red Label days. Not really, though. I've yet to go to a bar and be like, I'll have a Johnny Blue, or even buying like Lefroy. I'm I'll buy a bottle and enjoy it home. But buying like a Lefroy at a restaurant, I'm like, oof, $22 whiskey? No, that's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are the bottles you drink at home. But I think, yeah, Writer's Tears replaced Jameson for me because it's like, it is more refined and it is, but it still has that sort of easy drinking sort of aspect to it.
It's very, like, I don't usually buy an Irish whiskey, but I will buy that one. So good. And it's more affordable than some of the other ones that are like of a similar caliber, I think.
I feel like over the years, we just have more options now. It was so limited 10 years ago or so. Do you find? Or maybe we just
I don't
didn't
think
know
I was
them.
even looking at the ones that were more than
Probably true for me.
$18. I like to think that whiskey is, I don't know. I was going to say having a moment, but no, I feel like I get looked at like an old man anytime I want to have a whiskey, but I don't know.
Me too, yeah. But then every once in a while, we'll find an event like the tasting we went to. Shout out to Women Who Whiskey in Toronto through a great event a few years ago. And we went and had, I think it was a pairing too with the whiskeys.
Cheese that I couldn't eat, so I gave you all my cheese.
I ate all the cheese. I think we tried like a white rye, and that was the first time I'd ever had a white rye. It was delicious.
Same.
Yeah.
Such a good experience. I want to do that again.
Yeah, we should find one.
All right.
Get into it.
Let's do a summary of what's happened so far. Oh, Morty's going to come join. Come on, baby. You want to come? Hi. So, what has happened? First off, we find out very early on that Elliot has left a major gap in the telling of his story so far, because originally we are made to think that as soon as Lana has this idea to go to Greece, she calls Kate right away and is like, let's go, like, let's journey there together. But then we find out that a full like 24 hours worth of drama went by between the point where she decided she was going to go to Greece and when she did call Kate. And what happened was, I believe it starts off with like Agatha, and she's kind of running errands.
I'm very distracted by Morty, but come on. He's just like, he wants all the pets. It's so sweet.
He's our book club mascot. It used to be a whiskey bottle. Move over, whiskey. Morty's in town.
Sorry, keep going.
So it starts off, we see Agatha. She's like running errands for Lana. She does the typical, you know, almost like assistant duties. She drops off a prescription, which I kind of want to put a pin in because I'm like, why would they mention a prescription specifically? And she picks up dry cleaning. The dry cleaner gives her clothes of Lana's, but then also some of Jason's things as well, which includes a suit. And Agatha's about to walk away, and the dry cleaner goes, oh, wait, one thing. It was stuck to the lapel of the suit, and he gives her this diamond earring. I think it's like a moon or something with something dangling from it. And Agatha right away knows it's not Lana's. And she kind of has a moment where she's going back and forth between, should I tell Lana? Should I not tell Lana? And she ultimately decides to tell her, which Elliot says is kind of the moment that unleashed all the drama that's going to unfold.
Yeah, it's so true. Because right after there's that moment where Lana just kind of walks out onto the roof and she's like sneaking a cigarette. She's like hidden cigarettes up on the roof there, but she has that moment, and you brought this up last episode. You're like, do you think it was her? Do you think it was, you know, sort of his suicidal situation? And she has that moment that kind of hints at that too. So I'm wondering if that plays into your theory as well.
Absolutely. I think the moment I saw the part where it said that Agatha was dropping off the prescription, that kind of raised a little bit of a red flag for me, because I was like, like, why would they say that? Like, it's one thing to be like, oh, she's getting milk, or she's, you know, picking up I don't know, documents, something more related, but prescription felt very intentional there. So I wonder if there's a little bit of darkness there with Lana, or like maybe some sort of mental health thing that's happening. And then when it mentioned the part where she was on the roof, considering, they didn't outright say she was contemplating suicide. I felt like that.
Yeah, he says something about how it would be so easy, and it would, there was a moment of relief. I think the word relief jumped out at me, but yeah, it's not overt. It just sort of, it's intrusive thoughts, though. I don't think that might be all that's happening there.
Yeah, it could be another red herring. It could be another situation where Elliot wants us to believe that Lana maybe did kill herself. I feel like Elliot's always not Elliot, like maybe the writer more so is always a little step ahead of us, which is great, where we're like, oh, it could be this. And then he's like, oh, you thought it was that, did you? Well, I'm going to make you think it even more and then take that away from you. But I don't know. Well, oh my God, Morty.
Listen to that purr.
That's an asthmatic purr. That happens with her kind of stepping it onto the roof.
Yeah, it was really interesting because how this like unfolds is Elliot almost makes it seem that she's going to Kate for counsel, help me figure this out, sort of, but when she gets there she just starts to ransack the place, right? Like her dressing room, like looking for this. So did you think that was intentional and premeditated, like she was going to see Kate because she suspected something, or do you think that once she got there it just kind of occurred to her?
No, I think she went with intent, because I think she saw when Agatha gave her the earring, they're friends. I think she recognized it. It sounds like it was a very distinct earring, like a moon shaped thing with like more diamonds hanging from it. So I kind of read that as she had seen this before. She had a gut, maybe whether she knew or not in that moment, she had a gut feeling it was Kate. And maybe it's one of those things where she always had like a little whisper of maybe Kate having an affair with Jason. And in seeing that, it felt a little bit more confirmed. I definitely felt like she was going there to find the other earring, or to figure out, like find concrete evidence that Kate and Jason were having an affair, whether it was another earring, whether it was some other form of evidence. I think that's why she was going there. That was my impression anyways.
Yeah, because he does say she has a photographic memory about this sort of stuff, like having worked in fashion or something like that. So that was sort of interesting. Like he didn't believe that she wouldn't remember either.
It's funny, I forgot about that, but you're right. They did mention that she had a photographic evidence, so that just makes me think even more that she saw the earring and she's like, that's Kate's.
Yeah, but pretended like she didn't know to Agatha, which is very manipulative. She is playing a lot of roles.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pride there too. Like I'm definitely getting the sense that this, and Elliot kind of talks about a little bit too coming up, but this sort of angelic figure that we see is very much a bit of a manipulation on people in her lives. And you kind of made a note of that as well, where, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but the fact that she's friends with Kate, like why is she friends with Kate? And maybe,
ooh, yeah. Why is she friends with Kate?
well, you had brought this up in your notes, and I kind of had a light bulb moment where I was like, oh yeah, you're so right. Like I do think that, well, we find out that Lana kind of put aside her career or retired from her career for Leo. She had a child and she wanted to make sure that she could commit to being a good mother. She didn't feel like she could fill both of those roles 100%. Mm-hmm. And you had brought up that it's possible that she's maintaining this friendship with Kate because it shows her what her life would have been like if she had stayed in acting. And Kate's a mess. Like Kate doesn't really have a stable relationship. Her relationships are through affairs. She has substance abuse problems. She's belligerent. People find her really hard to be around. And I agree with you. I think that she maintains that relationship in this effort of superiority, where it's like, oh, I actually did better by leaving behind the career I loved. Because look at Kate. Kate's stuck with her career. You know, she didn't go off and have a family, and look at where she is. And I think that she's maintaining that relationship because of her pride.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because as you're talking about this, I'm also thinking about how early on in Act 1, Elliot said, this isn't what they were thinking. This is what I think they were thinking. So do you think that there's an element of this is Elliot's perception of what she thought, because yeah, it's very clearly stated that part about, Kate going from relationship to relationship. But has she ever talked to Elliot about this? I'm just so fascinated by the storytelling here, because you can't trust like any of these people are having any of these thoughts, which is kind of new.
Or even the scenarios where Elliot isn't there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments where Elliot is not present at all, and yet he's recounting the story as this omniscient character. Yeah. But he's in the story as a real life human being like everybody else is. So that's interesting. And we got a little sidetracked on the summary, but after we find out the past, Lana ends up dead, and we see where everyone was in that moment when she first disappears. Well, first what happens is we see behind the scenes after the dinner when they're in the living room, and we see that Lana actually confronts Jason and Kate and says, choose. Like, I want you to choose between me and Kate. And it becomes really awkward. Lana runs off. Jason gets angry. He goes off. I think Leo was already kind of going off. And then it ends up just being Elliot and Kate in the end. They have a drink, and then Kate storms off at something that Elliot says. So they're all off in their own little areas. And then we see that Lana runs off and goes to Nikos. Mm-hmm. And she says to him, I need a favor from you. Elliot's not there. We know Elliot's with Kate. How the fuck does he know all of this stuff?
That's a great point. Yeah, because I was going to say there might be moments that where he was there and we're just not aware of it, and he's leaving that out. For example, when she's on the phone with Kate and inviting her to the island, Elliot's right there. That was left out of the initial retelling, but now we know. I wonder if there's more situations like that, because he is, again, observing Lana, observing Kate later on, right? Where Lana sees Jason and Kate sharing a kiss. Who am I? Kissing. It's so like,
old world, sharing a kiss.
Sharing a kiss. I wonder if there's moments where he's just sort of around and observing people without them knowing it, and he's retelling it to us now. It might not be the case, but that's one angle.
If that's the case, he is again leaving stuff out, and the timeline of him being with Kate in the living room and Lana being with Nikos isn't lining up like he says it is, which, as we're learning, is very possibly the case, because he's already revealed that he leaves gaps in his storytelling. There's 100% going to be another gap that he, will be like, oh, I didn't tell you this, as we get to the next act. So maybe it's something there.
Yeah. I know we got sidetracked off the summary, but you brought up Nikos in that moment with Lana in that cottage, and what did you think of that? That whole what happened when she asks him, what ensues?
Well, I now hate Nikos. He's so gross. She goes to him and is like, I need a favor, and she gifts him this beautiful necklace that she'd been wearing all night that was definitely worth a lot of money. Morty cannot believe what's happening.
She's like, you can buy a boat with this necklace, and he's like, I don't want it.
He just wants a kiss.
It's gross.
That's disgusting. I think if I was Lana, I'd be like, forget about it. I can do it by myself.
Well, she's just like, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, if you're someone whose wealth has been taken advantage of for decades, and someone's like, I don't want your money, I want you, maybe there's a weird, twisted, like, I don't know, relief in that.
Yeah, and I think it also ties to she was kind of indulging this, what if she had married Nikos and just stayed on the island? What would her life be like? So she had that moment there. So maybe it tied to that. If she hadn't been feeling that way, then maybe her response would have been different. So do you think there was some sort of underlying attraction on her end too that's kind of being highlighted just now?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and I think it also depends on the character that, like, how you see Nikos in your head. Like, is he this like creepy old like weird man lurking in the shadows, or is he this like, I don't know, gruff, buff Ryan Gosling like taking care that it's like I just want to kiss, and you're like, oh, no problem. Sorry, what was the question?
You're just thinking about Ryan Gosling now.
Let's just pretend it's Ryan Gosling playing this character, and yes, Lana does want that from him, but also like bringing it back to reality, the reality of this fiction novel. Lana probably does have this desire for a life that is not her own. I think it's pretty clear in that moment when she's standing on her balcony, like thinking about jumping. There is this desire for another life. I imagine a lot of really big celebrities probably do fantasize sometimes about what it would be like to just have a quote unquote normal life. And I think that life with Nikos would be exactly that.
Yeah, and she would get to be on the island more, and she says she's happiest on the island. And it's funny that Nikos picked up on that too earlier on. He says he was actually fantasizing about her being there more and how she would be happier if she was there more. So I think that probably plays into it as well.
What do you think the favor was?
Yeah, I think it's too easy for it to be, can you kill someone for me? I think it was probably a little bit more manipulative than that. I think she was starting to put the pieces into place. And it's funny, like I have thoughts from last night when I was writing notes, and I'm having new thoughts as we're talking about it, because I feel like it's just like creating new connections for me right now. But I think it ties into how Elliot was talking about how she wants to assemble everyone at the ruin. Not everyone, but her and Jason, and have this moment where she kind of coerces him into an apology. And Elliot's describing this as this moment where Jason ends up groveling for her to take him back, and Elliot really doesn't want that to happen. But I wonder if it was something like, just helping her set the stage for that, and it might not be just bringing people around, but doing something to help her get there. I don't know.
Somehow like wrangling this apology in front of a bunch of people. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Maybe not in front of a bunch of people, but just sort of helping, her direct that scene.
That does feel very like she's trying to almost manipulate her real life into this strange play.
Yeah, because Elliot does say, right, like, she is playing a character. She's in character as herself this whole time. And that ties into how in Act 1, she's not quite herself. She seems a little different to some of the people that know her. But so I think this might be it. She's herself, but she's a version of herself. So she's not being authentic. She's trying to play herself.
So I do wonder if a lot of those really, really big celebrities feel like they do need to kind of maintain this essence of themselves. And that feels like what Lana's doing here. Like she has created this brand, I guess, for herself. And now she has to maintain it. And maybe she's having this strange crumbling between this character that she's supposed to play and then the person who she actually is or feels that she is.
It sounds exhausting. And I think you're right. You need to sort of separate who you really are with who the public sees. I think that's probably some form of self-protection, right? To have a mask on, but maintaining that mask. And I wouldn't say it's like manipulative or deceptive or anything like that. It's more just sort of, this is the version of myself that I want to be, and not everyone gets to see every single part of me. What do you think about that?
I agree. And I also don't think, like, even if it is a form of manipulation, like, I don't think manipulation is always a bad thing, if that makes sense. It's like, if this brand is working for her and it's what's helping her maintain a following, her wealth, her friendships, then, you know, a level of that kind of makes sense in the way that it's probably integral to her existence or her current existence.
I just thought it was interesting that the police can't come until dawn, and it's almost like a timer's being set, you know, because by the time they come, we're going to know who it is. So it's on and it's starting to unfold. So
he also brings up the fact that he brought up Agatha Christie a couple times. I think it's like in the epigraph at the beginning of the act where it says every murderer is someone's good friend, which is really interesting. And then he brings her up at the end of the act when he's mentioning everything that you just said, that we're going to know who the murderer is. And he goes, you know, the murderer could be one of us, or it could be very similar to a technique that Agatha Christie uses, where it's none of us, it's actually an outsider that she brings in the last moment, a foreigner, someone who's not welcome on the island. What do you think of that? Do you think that's another red herring? Do you think we are going to meet another person that could potentially be the murderer? What do you think?
I think that the window of that happening would have had to be so small, because it would have had to be on one of the boats of someone else who's already there or has been there at some point during the day. So if it's not, you know, the main guests, then it's Babis and his crew. So someone snuck over there with him, or someone stayed behind, or something to that effect. It could be Babis, but I don't know that it's someone new. I think it's a red herring, because they would know if there was someone who just showed up. They would see a boat.
He also says outside of the six of us. Isn't there more than six people? So there's Lana and Kate, Jason and Leo, Elliot, Agatha. They're the six that came over. But then there is also Nikos. Mm-hmm. So there's seven. So when he says six of us, he's leaving someone out.
Lana.
She is a foreigner. Like, she's not from Greece.
What do you mean? Because he's leaving her out because she's not around anymore.
Oh. This is the line. But who then is left? Only one other solution is possible, a trick that Christie herself sometimes used, an outsider, someone whose name was not on the list of six suspects, someone who landed illegally on the island. I think that's what I meant when I was saying foreigner.
Or outsider too, yeah.
Yeah, outsider, yeah. Someone who landed illegally on the island despite the bad weather, armed with a gun and the desire to kill. Someone from Lana's past. I forgot about that part.
Someone from Lana's past.
Barbara West. She's dead.
She's dead, yeah.
Otto, he's dead.
He's dead.
I'm not buying any of this.
Unless in Act 3 we find out about a whole different side story about Lana's past and something he's left out for now. Maybe.
He's definitely left something out. So I keep saying definitely. We don't know for sure till we get to it. But I have a feeling that if he exposed us to one gap in his storytelling, he's going to be exposing us to another gap in his storytelling.
One thing I really wanted to ask you about is, so I went back and I looked into Clytemnestra a little bit. I'm never going to say that right. But it's from the Odyssey, right? Like, I didn't realize that last time we talked about it, but it's from the Odyssey. And basically she is is portrayed as quote unquote the bad wife. I read that in like a quick summary. I read the Odyssey in university. I don't really remember it very specifically, but so I needed to go back and find a summary. But basically, she has an affair while her husband is away, and when he comes back, she and her the person she had an affair with kill her husband. So that's sort of the parallel I'm seeing. And then I think Elliot mentions that Clytemnestra, she would have done it with an axe, whereas Lana was holding a gun pointed at Jason.
You're making me think now that like Lana's a bit of a villain, and Lana is actually Clytemnestra and not Kate. I don't know. I would be interested to see that, because we're starting to realize that like Elliot is very, very obsessed with Lana. It actually starts out, the first act begins with him saying, you know, hell has always been misidentified as this fiery pit, but in reality, it's an absence from God. And then he says that he's in hell because he's absent from Lana. And he's already admitted that he kind of has a tendency to let his emotions get in the way of what he's saying, or his storytelling. And if he thinks so highly of Lana, he's probably painting her a certain way and Kate in another way, especially if they're rivals. So this whole time I've been seeing Kate as Clytemnestra, but do you think it could be Lana and she's hiring Nikos to kill Jason and something goes awry there?
I'm trying to figure out what went awry, because someone shows up, right? And she seems surprised. So I wonder if she, again, is like spinning this like complex web where she asks Nikos for a favor that weaves into what you're saying, right? So maybe she is the villain, but she's starting it off with almost like sacrificing herself to put the pieces in place. I don't know. This is probably really far off, but when someone dies or is murdered, who do you look at? You look at the husband first, or you look at the partner first. Do you think it's something like that, where she's feeling hopeless? She feels that she doesn't want to continue on, but she also wants some level of vengeance associated with it.
It's like the highest form of manipulation ever, like using your own life. Say that there was some sort of like contingency clause in her death where if like Jason had been the one to kill her, then, or been involved in her death in any matter, then he wouldn't get the money, then Leo would get everything, and maybe that's her plan. And I'm only bringing this up because there's a moment when they're discussing Lana's wealth. And Elliot makes a comment about how Leo will be fine for life upon Lana's death, because he'll get billions. And Lana goes, "It's not billions, Elliot. Don't be stupid."
Yeah, right. I picked up on that too. That was such a, I thought that might come back later, because he doesn't go into it very much. It seems like he kind of glosses over it. But later on, doesn't she also just tell him that, you know, Elliot are always going to be taken care of? And then she leaves him something in her will.
We find out that Elliot actually has a substantial amount in the will as well. Yeah. Which makes me think that she's pretty generous about the amount of money that about the amount of people that she includes in her will. If Elliot, a friend, is included, would Jason not be included as well? And probably Kate, if she's known Kate longer. There's supposed to be that legacy friendship who've known each other since they were little. I think they all have money to inherit upon her death.
Everyone has a motive.
Remember Murder on the Orient Express? The result wasn't one person killed.
Oh, it was everyone?
The person, it was everyone.
Ooh, maybe. I hope not. I hope it's one person. I want it to be one person. But okay, so that's a great segue into the author that he says. You picked up on that too. Like, there's an author and a book that he credits, you know, being so instrumental as an influence in his playwriting career, because that author helped him understand that every character needs a motive. They have a motivation, an intention, and a goal. And yeah, the motivation is always to remove pain. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think everyone's pain is?
That is such a great question. I think they all have like individual pain points, but I think they all have a level of dissatisfaction with their lives. So if it came down to one thing that they all have in common, I think it's dissatisfaction. None of them have the lives that they want to live. I think Kate wishes that she was more like Lana. I think Lana wishes she was more like Kate. I think Elliot wishes he was rich like everybody. I think Nikos wishes that he either had his wife back or had a new wife. Yeah, Leo wants to be an actor, but he's not an actor. His mom isn't supportive. What about you? What do you think?
I agree with that. That's such a great sort of thread to connect them. It's a dissatisfaction. Everyone wants a little bit more. Everyone also wants Lana, in some way. Yeah, maybe everyone's pain is also that they can't have Lana in the way that they want, except Kate. I'm not quite sure about that. Because she wants Jason, but Lana took Jason away from her.
I think what you said, though, about how everyone wants Lana, I wonder if it's closer to like everybody wants to be Lana, in which case that is Kate. She wants the love that Jason shows to Lana for herself, which makes it feel like everyone kind of wants to be Lana except Lana herself.
The ultimate tragedy.
This is a tragedy, apparently.
Okay, so he unpacks everyone's motive at the end, thanks, but he doesn't unpack it from the lens of pain, which is interesting because he unpacks it in the Agatha Christie kind of way. Like, what is a motive as a police investigation?
Tangible motives.
Yeah. But so he's almost like straying away from it. And it almost goes back to, he sets up something and then he doesn't do it later on, or he goes against it later on. Do you find that he mentions it himself? He's not very constant. He says, my hand isn't firm, it's weak and erratic like me. So
I love that line.
Yeah, it's a great line. So maybe at least like he wants us to think that everything he's telling is unfolding with this like 3-part structure, but he's not even going with it.
I think so. I think he's kind of playing with us, to be honest. I think all of this is intentional on Elliot's part. Like he definitely wants to be like, oh, everyone's motive is pain. And then he's going on this like 2-page segue about people's very tangible motives. He really wants us to, he gives us a nugget of truth and then he tries to like steer us away from the truth. And then he keeps doing that over and over again. And I have to bring this up. I know we're so over. The book that he says was pivotal to his storytelling was called The Techniques of Playwriting by Valentine Levy. And I had mentioned in my notes that I couldn't find this book anywhere. I was like, I don't think this book actually exists.
Yeah, if it exists, let us know.
Let us know, because I could only ever find like mentions of the Fury. But then you mentioned that it's a real author.
Yeah, I found a book on Amazon. It was in French, though.
Saint-Main Gauche.
Yeah.
So then when you told me it was a real author, I was like, okay, this is weird. Why would he quote a real author but not a real book? Sounds like we both found the same book. It's in French. This is what the translation is, which I feel like is a little Easter egg for us. So I'm just going to read it really quick. This is in Google Translate. I swear I did French immersion, but I don't want you to watch me trying to translate in a moment. His left hand is a summary of resolutely ineffable perfection. He is Joseph, alias Joe, terribly imperfect and therefore perfectly describable. A good protagonist for a novel. Well, except for him. The applications may come one after another, but none will find favor in the eyes of this mysterious being, capable of ousting you from the narrative with a simple snap of a finger. Difficult is the fight of the author, seeking to impose his character.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a great Easter egg. That's giving us such great insight into this narrator, into Elliot's
He's
motive.
imposing his character. That's what he's doing. And he's telling us he's laying it out for us and kind of playing with us a little bit. I love that. I think that's really great writing. Like someone who's kind of being manipulative to the reader. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, you know how in relationships sometimes
I'm listening.
Well, sometimes therapists will tell you when you're dating, if someone tells you who they are, believe them, because we spend a lot of time not believing what people say to us, even when they're saying like, this is who I am, they're showing that to you. You're like, no, like that's not really who you are. I know who you really are on the inside.
People love to think that they know people better than people know themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even though he's being transparent, will everyone take him on surface level?
That's a great question. I think that's a great way to clue this up. Before we go on, before we finish, I guess, who do you now think did it?
Well, I don't think it's Leo anymore. I think that's for sure.
Leo? Tell me more.
Well, I think there's more at play now. I understand that at the beginning we found out more about his acting career not going over well with Lana. But I think it's kind of overshadowed by some of the other dynamics right now. So I'm not seeing his motive as being the most compelling motive right now. I think, I don't know. I actually don't have a clear idea right now of who it might be. I have a feeling like maybe Nikos is involved, and then like we were talking about, like maybe Lana is sort of orchestrating some of this. But yeah, that's where my head's at right now. I feel like we'll find out more in Act 3. But I kind of love that because I would have hated if we had like a clear idea in Act 1 and it just followed through. What do you think?
I agree. Like you never want to guess at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like it feels good, but it doesn't because you're invested in the art and you want to be, you want to feel like you know what's happening and then be led in another direction. So I would have been bummed if it was Leo.
What do I think?
I don't think I know who did it, but I'm starting to think that maybe it wasn't as intentional as we think it is. Like whether it was an accident, whether it was a killing that was directed to someone else and it ended up being Lana.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's going to be something like that. But if I was to guess right now, I would say Elliot. But I think he's also giving us obvious reasons to think it's him because he brings up the fact that he's in the will, that he's been lying to us. So I'm going to go Elliot for now, just so I have a solid answer. But I think that there's a lot at play that we don't know yet. So excited to see how Act 3 unfolds.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that it could be unintentional because maybe it's like, I don't know if timing lines up, but what if like Jason like trying to shoot something? Actually, no, he doesn't have his guns.
Yeah, Jason doesn't have his guns.
Yeah.
Lana has one of them. Nikos has his own.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to keep reading and find out who it was, but also like the why done it, not a who done it. So maybe your theory about this being like the murder on the Orient Express could be where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. We'll only know by reading more.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to us.
Oh yeah, before Morty freaks out again, we'll take off. But we'll see you next time.
Seattle Book Club.